Hey now, what is going on YouTube? ModzvilleUSA back with another video, and this one's going to be very different and something that I think is important to get out there, because finding the information about this was a little tricky. All the main web pages are down, and there was a lot of scrolling through Wayback Machine archived forum posts and whatnot to get this sorted out. And what we're doing today is we are using the FDSSTICK for the Nintendo Disk System, Famicom Disk System to be more specifically. We're going to use this device that came out in 2015, still obtainable, and we're using that to reprogram any old Famicom Disk System game. We can program any disc with whatever Famicom Disk System game we want. This is very handy for if you get games that are just really troublesome and refuse to read. I had one like that. And it's also handy if you want to program it with an English translation to make, let's say, RPGs from Japan playable in the United States. Now, we'll start by going over everything you need, and specifically one other thing to address here is the information for doing this with like a classic Famicom and disk system setup is a bit more obtainable and out there and on the main website, the stuff that you will need. However, doing this for the Twin Famicom, the information is not as readily available. However, I found it, and I think that is my preferred method. It is cheaper to get done on a Twin Famicom. You need to build less cables, and yeah, it's relatively simple to do once you have the information to do it, and that's what this video is going to be all about. So you're going to want one of these RAM adapters, because you need to source it for this blue cable here. Alternatively, you can build one of these with likely a female pin header, and you can get just a regular multi-out yellow, white, red Nintendo adapter. It's basically the same thing, but you need to shave the bump off the top. Build your own cable. I will be looking into doing that down the line, but to keep things simple, for now I used a RAM adapter. You remove the 4 screws, you unplug the cable, you use that cable. Got that there. You are obviously going to need a Famicom or an FDS stick purchased from 3dscapture.com. They are currently in stock at the time of making this video. You're going to need some female and male pin headers like this to build an adapter to be able to write to the dang thing, and you're going to need a Twin Famicom. Now let me go over some of the details real quick, show you what my Twin Famicom. The main thing that I'm going to be trying to get across here is that I have the Twin Famicoms without the LEDs on the power button. I have 2 of them, and both of those have completely writable disk drives without the need for a Modchip. Now, if you have a later revision, you're going to need to get a Modchip from a company from China and install that in the actual disk drive. However, 2 out of 2 of my Twin Famicoms without LEDs for the power light are good to go disk drive wise out of the box. So let me show you mine. So here's one of the 2 Twin Famicoms that I own. As you can see here, power button does not have an LED in it. Later revisions, I believe later revisions do. Now, I don't know if this isn't 100%, it's just I own 2 of these without the LEDs, and the disk drives are fine to write to out of the box. So if you don't want a mod chip, if you haven't already got one of these, you get one of these in the junk lot. You're going to need to replace the belt anyway, and then you can check to see what chip is on your Famicom Disk System drive. But for the sake of being thorough, I'm going to tear this apart. I'm going to tear open the disk drive and show you what to check to see whether you need a mod chip in your disk drive or not. We're not going to cover installing the mod chip because I don't need one personally, but we're going to get that out of the way. We're going to be thorough, and I'm going to show you how to check so you know 100% without a doubt whether your disk drive is fine or not. And also take a look at this. Go follow Jeff Chan on Twitter. He designed this. I got some PCBs made and printed this, 3D printed this little adapter here, little controller adapter. Plug in SNES and NES fucking controllers. It's very neat little project. Highly recommend. We're going to tear this open and check out. I'll show you what to check on the disk drive right now. Now once you pop the top off, that you've got this one cable plugged into the top, so just be careful with that. Give it unplug. Good to go. The first thing we're going to be taking a look at here is this disk drive. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you want to come in here with a flat head, and we need to release these two tabs so these wires come out. Now I've already done this more than once because I replaced the belt and then I came back in here and checked the drive at a later time. Ideally you do both at the same time. If you got a non-refurbished Famicom Disk System, you are absolutely going to need to replace the belt on this thing. Every single one I've come across, the belt is just straight up melted off of it. They're very old. Yeah, makes sense. So we got these wires loosened up, free to maneuver here. And we have two different 4 screws total. These are all the same. This guy is a different type. So you're gonna want to keep a mental note of all of your screw types and where they go. So this comes off after the 3 here. Okay, the one that goes in this corner is fairly defined. It's just got the I don't know what you call that, some sort of washer on it, and then we've got 2 other screw types, and then one that's going to require a smaller screwdriver, smaller gauge Phillips head to unscrew. So we're going to do these 2 here. Okay. Last but not least, this one Make sure you use the right gauge. This is a very soft screw. You don't want to strip anything. Okay, now all we need to do is we want to maneuver this up. Be careful of the cables. Don't force anything. And you know, I'm going to sometimes you kind of need to feed it some more slack. There you go. Okay, so this is all we want to be able to do. Let's get a tighter shot of that. This right here, this is what you're looking at. FD7201P. So basically, just look at the FD7. If you have an FD7, then your disk drive is ready to go. Don't need to worry about anything further security-wise on this disk drive itself. If it's an FD3, then you're going to need to get and install the Modchip, which I will link you to in the description. You're going to need to follow the diagrams, follow the instructions there, do that, and then proceed with the video, or get your hands on an earlier drive with an FD7201 chip in it. So this drive is ready to go. Nothing further. If you have one FD3, get that mod chip, install that mod chip, come back to the video later once that's all done, and continue on with the video. So we've got some more legwork to do. When putting this back in too, it's worth noting, you're going to need to depress this switch and just kind of guide it through. Sometimes it's actually probably easier. We come in here with a flathead or something like that. Just get this, just help carry this through. Okay, so at this point I've completely reassembled the drive. Make sure to get your cables routed back through here. Take your screwdriver, just lock them in. Be good to go, nice and safe, nice and easy. And I'm going to plug it in and screw it back into the Famicom Disk System. And then next we're going to be taking a look at the power board. Okay, so here we are on the power board. As you can see, I've got a very jankily done modification here, mainly done for testing, and I do intend to go back and use some nice heat shrink tubing later. But yeah, this worked out well. So take a look at your power supply board here. This is your main board, and make sure it looks like mine. So one of the things with the Famicom Disk System and like read-write protection that Nintendo did, very early ones were totally read-writable, and then later revisions that had this disk drive, there was protections on the power supply itself. So the power supply would need a modification as far as finding information about that for a regular Famicom Disk System. All of the boards are totally documented on Famicom Disk World as for what needs to be done to each of them in order to enable write protection, or enable the ability to write on the power supply end itself. These guys here, the Twin Famicoms, this board is not in that documentation at all, but I was, through the power of the Wayback Machine and some NESDEV forums, figured out how to bypass it on these guys due to someone smarter than myself. And it's very simple. All you need to do is come in here with your flush cuts and you snip the two gray wires. Snip, snip. And you got two ends. You got one coming from the disk drive here. The other ones coming from somewhere on the bottom side of the board here. Not sure exactly where, but those both were initially plugged in here. And then essentially I just soldered them together and used a bit of Captain tape as insulation. And once again, use heat shrink tubing. This is all just kind of makeshift for testing, and I will go back and make that nicer when I do my NES RGB, but for now this will get the job done. Safe enough. This tape is well insulated enough. We'll be fine. But yeah, for a more permanent thing, use heat shrink tubing. And yeah, that's all you need to do on the power supply board. Just make sure, I don't know if there's later revisions of this that are different. If your power supply, just look at all the components, look at the orientation. If your power supply is different from mine, then don't copy this exactly. I'm not sure of later revisions. It's just these are this is what works for my power board. It might be the only power board for these twin Famis. There might be one later down the line, so if you got a different one, then we're gonna need to figure that one out, or you're gonna need to figure that one out. But yeah, let me know if yours looks different. I'm curious if there's different revisions down the line. I want to put this bad boy back together, and I want to show you what needs to be done, how the cable works. So let's get into that. Okay, so here's the NESDEV thread that I got all this information from. I had to use the Wayback Machine, and I will leave a link to this thread here, along with the diagram of how the cable works. As far as I believe everything we've done, that was in a different thread with the copy protection thing. That was over here. Already did that. The main thing we're looking at here is this setup. Now this is the port. It's got a black piece of plastic on it. It is ports C and D on the Twin Famicom itself. It's pretty much got a patch cable going through it by default. So what we need to do is get two female pin headers and solder them together to link here. This is the adapter that you buy for the Twin Famicom when you buy your FDS stick. So let me show you that too. Here's the website. It no longer says it's out of stock, which is great, but you're going to want the FDS stick and the Twin Famicom adapter. We're going to want to buy those two things, and this is the RAM adapter cable. Plugs into that adapter. That goes into the two female pin headers. Those female pin headers that you solder together go into the patch cable that's included in the Twin Famicom, and then essentially we just solder up two wires that goes to another 12 pin header. Pin 3 goes to pin 3, pin 4 goes to pin 4, and that's really all there is to it. This is what the cable should look like. So I'll show you on my end my cable setup here. Try to break it down a little simpler for you. Okay, let's take this whole thing, take this whole dang thing apart. Okay, so this right here, this is the RAM adapter cable. Once again, if you want to build one of these yourself, feel free. I'll likely do that down the line, so I don't have to have a partially intact RAM adapter. But if you want to go the route I did, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Pop this back off, you unplug the blue connector, you're good to go. And it's not destructive. We can plug this back in anytime we want and have a fully functional RAM adapter. But yeah, having to gut these for a project like this, or taking pieces from this to use in this, it's not ideal, and it'd be nice to build my own one day to reassemble that one. So yeah, we've got this cable here, and then we take this and we plug this in to the RAM adapter that comes with that you purchase with the FDS stick. Cool. So this is just this connector, and then by default this would just go straight into I believe port C, but we're not doing it that way. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this cable here and hooking it up to our custom little adapter over there. So in order to build one of these, this is where those pin headers I mentioned earlier come in. So my female pin headers, probably not the best versions of these. You want one, ideally you get ones like these regular pin headers where you can break it off where you want it. This one, I had to cut it. So you're going to want to count 12. 1, 2, 3, whatever, 12 snip. So you want to have 12 pins. And then you're going to do that again. Another 12 pins. And then you line them up. Invert them. Just stack them on top of one another. And connect them. Just solder them up. 12 sides. I did both sides. Solder it up. 12, 12. Got 12 pins connected. So, you know, a double-sided female pin header connector like this. Like a pass-through kind of a thing. So you'll have that, and then you line it up. Well, first we want to look at this cable here. Okay, so freeze frame it here if you don't want to go to the link, and just get this made, the double-sided female pin header adapter, and just pay attention to these pins. The third one from the right here goes to pin 3. As well as this side. So yeah, just they all match up. It's pins 3 and 4, and yeah, don't get confused by the shadow. Get your adapter made, and we'll show you how to hook everything up here. So this is where we're going. We got this little plastic piece here, just lifts right up, and this is what it looks like by default. You've just kind of got this patch cable going. So what we're going to do is unplug side D like this. So this is hanging out. Got some nice little pins here, and I'm looking at the picture on the right. You want to make sure everything's going together the right way. So we've got the green cable up top here, and then this one we're going to plug this in to where the cables the wires that we soldered up are on the lower end. As you can see, they're soldered on the bottom side for me, 3 and 4. So we're going to plug this up like this. Oh, also, I had to snip with my flush cuts a little chunk out on this cable here in order to get a solid connection. I was having a hard time getting it to work. The connection just wasn't cutting it. See if yours fits snugly, but I had to give mine a little bit of breathe room with these, the way this was cut. But yeah, if you find better pin headers, you might not have to do this, but I did. So let's see. Yeah, green up top. Top cable's green. And we got, boom. Our 2 cables are on the bottom side here. So 3 and 4, that's our cables. And then we take this guy here, a little pin header, and we hook it up to here. Boom. And you're going to want to be careful with the pin header, like removing it and putting it in, because it's very breakable. It's kind of designed to snap in these little sections, so just keep that in mind. And then last but not least, we hook that FDS stick up to this end. Okay, cool. And now this is where it gets it's pretty simple from here. You might need, depending on your PC setup, you might need an extension cable, because we're going to need to turn this on and hook this up to the computer. And keep in mind, this isn't going the way this is configured right now. It's not going to, we're not going to be using this as a flash cart here. We're not going to be able to play Famicom Disk System games until we put this back to normal. This setup here is strictly for reading and writing discs. But once you're all set up like this, it's pretty damn easy to just set up, hook up the cable, hook it up here, there, plug it into your laptop or wherever, and read and write discs. But yeah, we're all set up. We are good to go. So the rest of it, I'm going to be showing you what's going on my setup, and I'm going to use the English translations for Zelda 1 and 2 and program my games with those files. And just as a little freebie here, show you the files that I'm getting Let's go back to the desktop. Let's do a Google search for Famicom Disk Champion Archive. There's two different sets. One is like the games that are playable without having to translate it, but they're still translated, and the other ones are the more crucial ones. I've got the whole set in one folder, and it's pretty much every game English translated for the Famicom Disk System, which is very nice and will likely be doing to my entire collection, just so it's in English, you know. Very, very nice feature. So I'll see you over on my Famicom Disk System Twin Fami setup. Alright, excuse the immediate drop in audio quality and the jank setup here. But essentially what I've got going on is I've got my Twin Fami turned on, cable setup we just did, everything's plugged in, running into the FDS stick, which is plugged into this little crap top here. It's running the FDS stick software, which is open over here. I've already tested, everything set up. I rewrote one game already. As you can see, video on it showing error 2 here, battery error. That is fine. So now what we'll do is I'm going to program Zelda 2 with an English translation. Okay, I get the disc here. Plug it in. Put it in. It's not making any sounds. That is normal. Come over here. Right disc. And Zelda 2 is organized. Link something. Link no Boken, whatever the hell that means. Legend of Zelda 2, Japan, version 1.0 English. Double click that. And now the Twin Fami's making sounds. Programming side A. Want to check this. Flip it over. Hit OK. And it's easy as that. Now I like to come in here and test that everything went well, because I've had one not work out, so I choose read, and this one here I just overwrite that every time. Make sure it can read the files properly. If not, yep, that's good. And we'll do the other side as well. Over, read next. Disk read failed. Let's give it a retry. Okay, and it worked. Done. Okay, now we're going to test it. So I'm going to unplug all of my fancy cables, hook this back up like a regular Twin Famicom, and we're going to test to make sure this worked. Okay, turning it on. Please set disk card. That is correct. Now what we're going to do, test this guy out. Got no audio going. Now loading. Good sign. Good sign. Alright. That is booting up. Now let's see, do we have an English menu here? Absolutely. Absolutely do. Insert name. way this works. Indeed it does, friends. Indeed it does. So it's as simple as that. And this is just going straight composite into my old Vizio TV. We have the Retro Tink over there. Not using that currently. That's why it's stretched like this. But yeah, that's all there is to it. We got that weird line going on. But yeah, hope that was helpful. Definitely leave a like if you enjoyed it and spread it around. It helps a lot. This is something very niche, but I felt needed to be made. Obviously, it's probably not going to get the views that like if I did a Switch video or something like that. So spreading it around, leaving likes is very helpful for something like this that needs to be out there, needs to be accessible for people, and not sifting through a bunch of information like I had to do. So I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll smell you later.